So now I'm over on the starboard side, looking to port. Owner's bunk, which is just a little bit bigger than queen size at the top and a couple of inches smaller at the bottom. And you can see there's plenty of book storage back there. So you just pull that and the big Espar D8 heater, it comes on, and in about 5 minutes, it's pretty toasty for getting up. Good reading lights above the bunk, either side. Shelf here for the person on the outside that we built. It's a handhold. That's another thing about this boat. You'll find handholds throughout the boat. Nice big hanging locker, way bigger than you would get in most boats. Louvered doors are a nice detail too, because they keep things nice and dry. But this is one of the nicer features on the boat. And it's the kind of thing you can get when boats get a little bigger. And that's a complete chest of drawers. This is a lot more important, I might add, than whether you have a lot of household gadgets on the boat. Things like this make all the difference when you're living aboard. Really nice. We had this built some years ago. I won't see too many boats with a filing cabinet. But boy, it is nice for all the ship's documents and bits of paper and everything else that you've got to have. There's a little shelf up there. Now, in case you think we're intrepid Arctic explorers, if that looks familiar, it should. It's an electric blanket control. And yes, we have one, and yes, you can run it on the batteries just to take the chill off before you go to bed. Now, this is a gigantic shoe locker. Yeah, it goes miles up in there. So there's room for, all the different shoes you've got. But there's a huge locker here, at least 4 feet wide and fore and aft, and 3 feet deep and probably 2.5 feet high. And that's right under the bunk. I'll just come out so you can see where that is. And we're looking at the quarter berth. It's a great sea berth. Lee board that comes up, and that's one of the most comfortable places in the boat to sleep. And it's relatively quiet too, although there is some noise from the autopilot motor. But if you're using the vane gear, you don't have to worry about that. So, I've just opened up the bilge there, and that's one of the nice things about the boat too, is you can get access to pretty much every part of the boat through these hatches. And the hatches are securely fastened with a substantial catch. There's a real tough piece of gear, and it locks the hatch really substantially. Put that insulation on there some years ago when we were in Norway, and it helps a bit. Obviously, the bilge gets colder than the rest of the boat. The rest of the boat's insulated. Aft outlet for the heater I talked about earlier, and you can see the steering gear there. And if I go in there and go in close, these are the custom-made steering shivs that are taking the cable from the engine room to the quadrant. And you can see they're massive, and they've got Zerk fittings on there for greasing. And talking of Zerk fittings, if you're wondering where that one goes, it goes to the top bearing on the rudder, which is a Thornton bearing. Some years ago, we redid that. Put the middle, which is the top bearing is the middle bearing, because there's a bearing at the deck and a bearing at the bottom of the skeg. And we reset that bearing, the middle one, perfectly on chock fast. So it's now perfectly aligned. This is the next hatch forward from the one we were just in. And you can see there's one of these huge Edson, I think they're 30-gallon per minute hand pumps. And this would be a really good place if you had to hand pump to brace yourself. You could sit on the seat there and pump by hand. That said, if you had a real leak, you're going to be exhausted pretty quickly pumping this thing at 30 gallons a minute. So we have other options, including a crash pump in the engine room. One of the amazing things about this boat is how well ventilated she is. I can't remember how many. We'll count them up as we go through the boat. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4. That one's aft. 5, 6 in the aft cabin here. and they're all opening. And the cool thing is they're custom and they're welded into the boat so that they just simply don't leak. And I think the glass in them is, if I remember, is 1/2-inch armor glass. So, you see big windows in boats, and that's all very well, but if you're in really serious heavy weather, which we've been in a fair amount, knowing that there's 1/2 inch of armor glass and a welded in massive port between you and the sea is pretty comforting. And talking about massive, there are 4 of these in the boat. And as you can see, they're custom. They were built by the builder out of solid pieces of aluminum fabricated. And they simply don't leak. That crossbars support the lenses in case of a really bad hit from something dropped or something came adrift, or even the sea if she was badly knocked down in very heavy weather. Never happened to us, but you want to be prepared for that. And I've opened up 3 of the dogs, and I'll just reach up and get this last one. You can see these things are massive, and they torque the hatch right down on the gaskets so they don't leak. And then if you want to open the hatch, just open 4 of them and give it a shove, and up she goes. Lifter that did that. We got to just grab this and pull it down. There you go. And you do that, and you feel very secure, but you can still get fresh air easily when you want it. So this is the aft head, Ownus head if you like, and it's got a really nice vanity, I guess. And there is a door available from this jamb to that jamb and goes up against this bulkhead. But we have not bothered to have it in place for some years because it's typically just 2 of us, and we like to have the art on the wall and the little magazine rack. But it's up the house and available. Storage under there and access to the plumbing. And again, louvered doors everywhere, which keeps the lockers nice and fresh. Simply for Phyllis, who has contact lenses, so she can put a contact lens fluid there and a contact lens there while she's putting them in at sea, so they're not flying around. That's where we keep our toothbrushes and that sort of thing. You can see there's a plug up in there, as there are throughout the boat. Funny the little details that refined over the years. This, I guess, this wedge is probably 20 years old. But if you don't have it there, it does that when the boat rolls, and it can drive you nuts. And actually, you'll find throughout the boat all kinds of little bumpers and things that we've done over the years to keep her really quiet at sea, and also even if you're just in anchorage where there's a little bit of motion, so you can get a good night's sleep, which is just so vital. Both Phyllis and I are actually fairly noise sensitive, and that's one of the lovely things about this boat. It's very, very quiet. There's the head, and you can see it under there. We actually don't use this head very often. We only use it when we have guests up forward, and so most of the time it ends up having things like, and that's our 2 survival suits. They can be at the bottom of the companionway, but we tend to keep them there because it's just more out of the way, but still ready to hand. But all that can be easily removed, and then the head's quite usable. Also has a door right here to the engine room corridor, so we have complete privacy if we've got guests on board. Shower is huge for a boat, which again is nice, and it's just so wonderful to have a really nice shower, and drains into a gray water sump and pumps over the side. This is a automatic temperature control mixing faucet for the shower, and really every boat that has a heat exchanger on the engine heating the water should have one of these. We didn't when we first bought the boat, but the engine will heat the water to 182 degrees is on the thermostat. That's Fahrenheit. You can get a bad burn if the engine's been on without this. So that keeps you safe, and it also means you don't waste a lot of water trying to get the temperature right.